And welcome along to another episode of Matchday Live as Lincoln City look to continue their perfect start to what has been a pretty exciting season here at the LNER Stadium so far. It's the visit of Ben Garner's Bristol Rovers this afternoon. The Imps looking to make it 5 out of 5 in the league for the first time since 1920-21. Could it be a record-breaking start to this League One season from Michael Appleton's side? Coming up on today's show, we'll be getting the latest thoughts from both sets of managers. Of course, want to hear your thoughts as well. Get your score and score predictions in, and I want to know where you're watching Matchday Live from as well. I'll do my best to read your comments out throughout the show. Of course, we'll be getting the team news for you live at 2 o'clock with Alan Long as well, so do get your comments in. We want your reaction to that. Gary Hutchinson joins me. Gary, delighted to see you once again. Let's get straight to it then, because no Manager of the Month award for Michael Appleton. Is that daylight robbery?
It would seem to be on the face of it, almost certainly. I thought it was between probably McCann of Hull and Michael. I felt that probably Michael taking a team from 16th in League One last year to top of the table would have been worthy. Other than that, Hull, I think, beat Leeds in the Carabao Cup. Really surprised to see Paul Lambert of Ipswich get it, but no Manager of the Month curse, so I think we'll take that and move on.
Yeah, certainly so. First versus 15th today then. Is that a true reflection of both sides' start to the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've obviously had a tough start to the season. We've spoken about it before. I think we've won games that perhaps last season we wouldn't have won. And I think first is certainly a fair reflection for us. Looking at Bristol Rovers, they haven't had as tough a start to the season. They've had some tough games. I think they played Ipswich twice, once in the Cup and once in the league. But they're feeling their way into it. I mean, we may have had a high squad churn, but Ben Garner came in as manager midway through last season. I think he's tried to change things around a little bit, brought his own players in the summer. They've had some injuries. They've been really inconsistent with the lineup that they've been able to put out and the formations. So I think 15 is probably a fair reflection for them. But after 5 games, it doesn't mean an awful lot. And I think we'd have a clearer indication if we were 20 or 25 games in.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to the Mansfield win shortly, but of course, another victory for Michael Appleton's side. How important is momentum in this type of season?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, I've always said winning is a confidence. Winning games breeds confidence. You moving forward, you play with more verve, and also let's not forget that it was not reserve players, but fringe players that really impressed the other night as well. So I think from Michael's point of view, it's fantastic to see another win, but it's also nice to see that some of the players that were driving that win have perhaps not had their opportunity in the league. So it shows that we've kind of got that kind of belief all the way through the squad. Again, it is obviously good moving forward.
Yeah, let's get to some of your comments then. Jacob says, the Manager of the Month cursed. We hopefully have served that loss. Appleton and Montsma, number 1. Yeah, we have seen that Manager of the Month curse plenty of times, not just with Lincoln City, but teams all over the AFL. So that could be a good thing, as Gary alluded to there. James Arnold says, watching from Adelaide, Australia. Come on, the Imps. Great to have you with us this afternoon, James, and well done for staying up no matter what time it is there. Goodo says, a difficult game, but if we perform like we have been, then City will come out victorious. Good to have you with us, Goodo. John McCormack says 5-0 to City. Straight to the point, John. Love it. Fingers crossed. We'd love to see 5-0 here at the LNER Stadium this afternoon, wouldn't we? Okay, well, Gary, let's get to that game against Blackpool then, because it was just another crazy ending, wasn't it? But take us through, first of all, the first part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought Blackpool played some nice stuff. It was always going to be tough going there. They've got a decent manager, decent players. Great save there early doors, kind of prevented them taking the 1-0 lead. Look, we were the architects of our own downfall. We play out from the back. Sometimes that goes wrong, but it's all about character. It's all about how you bounce back. Now, maybe if fans were in the stadium, Blackpool go 1-0 up, their fans get behind them, and it may be a little bit more difficult. But instead, as we said, we've shown great confidence. We've got back into it really quickly. And I think, that just shows the kind of mentality that Michael's instilled in the players this season.
Brennan Johnson, what an impact he had, Gary, winning a couple of penalties. We've seen there the type of skill that he possesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think one of the differences at this level from League Two, where we came from a couple of years ago, is pace. If you've got pace and ability, you cause trouble. We come up against more players with pace, and we've been able to attract more players with pace. And Brennan Johnson has got bags of it. He's got it in abundance. Look, we may have been given a few penalties this season, but you've got to get into the box to win penalties, and that's exactly what he did. And look, that goal there from Dimitri Mitchell could have knocked the stuffing out the side. 1-1, you deserve to win the second half. You go 2-1 down, but there we go. Brennan Johnson just showing purpose and poise, and the game changes. Yeah,
just going back to Brennan there. He was with the Wales squad this week as well. We saw what type of impact that had on Joe Morrell, who actually started that game for Wales in midweek. Brennan there as well. Being around those types of players must be hugely beneficial for a League One player.
Absolutely. And not just for him, I think also for the other players in the Lincoln squad. They're sitting down to watch England versus Wales and see a teammate on the bench. That's aspiration for you, I think. But look, let's talk about this guy as well. How long before he's in the Netherlands squad? I mean, that's Dennis Bergkamp-esque. What a goal that is. We talk about him every single week. I mean, he's just got such ball control. It's phenomenal.
It's becoming a bit of a running theme, a bit of a running joke on Twitter, isn't it? A lot of Lincoln fans have made quite a bit of money from Lewis Montsma so far this season too.
Yeah, I don't think they will today, though, Sam. I think people have picked up on it a little bit. I must admit, I was on him last week as well, so I did celebrate the goal with a little bit of extra gusto, and my steak and chips that evening came free. So thank you, Lewis. Yeah, good man, Lewis Montsma, making a lot of people very happy in Lincoln. Gary, I've asked you this question a few times already, but grinding out victories like that when you're just about to lose a game and you actually turn it around, not just to take a point, but to take all 3 points, what does that say about the mentality? And what has Michael done to instill that mentality in this side, this quite young side, so early on? I don't know. I don't know what work he does on the training ground. The truth is that last year when he first came in, if we went a goal down, we tended to lose the game. Heads would drop, confidence would sap. We saw against Burton at the very end of last season, we went goal down, came back, won the game. And now we've just got this quality. We used to say refuse to lose. And that was the previous manager's kind of mantra. But, you know, these youngsters, they don't know when they're beaten. It's almost like they're playing with this youthful exuberance. They don't have the experience of going a goal down and then losing games on a regular basis. They don't know how to lose. They just keep going. They keep playing with that kind of expression that they have, with that pace that they have. And, you know, I say this every week, but it just bodes well for the future. It really does. David Johnson says the odds weren't very good for Montsma to score today. Yeah, the bookies aren't daft, are they, David? They always cotton on in the end. Okay, well, last week was a pretty good week for goalkeeper Sam Long, the academy graduate who signed his first professional contract with the Imps. More good news coming out from the club and the academy this week, because it is the turn of Hayden Cann, the midfielder who just turned 17 last week, made his debut in the EFL Cup against Mansfield. We'll come on to that shortly. But this is what Hayden Cann had to say. Understandably, he was pretty delighted with the news.
Oh, I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing.
I mean, in terms of it, you know, signing the deal, you've been at the club since you're 8-year-old. I mean, does it mean that little bit more that it's Lincoln City to you?
Yeah, of course it does. Like, coming all the way through and then getting a pro, like, it means so much, but there's still loads of work to do.
I mean, recently we've had Sean Rowan come through the academy, Sam Long as well, and now yourself. There's quite a pathway for young players now at this football club, isn't there? Yeah, there definitely is. Like, the environment of the club and what the gaffer wants to do with the players, like the young players, it's all good for young players. So you got to like take every opportunity you get. I mean, you mentioned getting out here and playing at LNER Stadium. You did it in the summer a couple of times. You've been around the first team for a little bit. How much has that helped you progress?
It gave me loads of confidence. So like being with them, seeing how they are, playing with them, and like getting the overall picture of what it's like to be a professional footballer, and now I get to do it. But like, hopefully, when I'm as good as I'm one day.
Yeah, huge congratulations to Hayden Cann. And Gary, I mean, he looks pretty blown away by the news, doesn't he? It's almost as if it was still settling in that interview. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, as a fan, you always want to see hometown boys come through, I think. He comes across as kind of grounded, excited to be here. You know, and they say it's all the young players' dream. And how many years have we had an academy where it's been really tough for players to come through? You know, we can probably count on one hand successful academy graduates over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And now we've pulled 3 out who will be in and around the first team. There are others in there as well. There's a young Irish lad called Bobby Dean who I've got my eye on. And I think that it's just going to continue. And I think that's kind of the
fabric of the club now, and it's the work not only that Michael's done, but also that Jez has done, that they do down at with the academy. It's positive and it's reaping rewards.
Yeah, certainly so. I mentioned before, didn't I, that Hayden Cann made his debut in the FL Cup against Mansfield. Look, you know what the outcome was. I know what the outcome was. It was a brilliant result for the Imps. But here's a reminder of what happened at Field Mill.
Imagine dreaming something big, but now someone says you've got to downsize. Your opinion's so paper thin, and I'll never compromise. So get used to it, get used to it, get used to it, man, get used to it, get used to it, get used to it, get used to it, man, get used to it. Move to the city, wipe the slate clean. Be who I want to be who I want. Move to the city, wipe the slate clean. Be who I want to be who I want. I'm gonna move to the city, wipe the slate clean. Be who I want to be who I want. I'm gonna move to the city, wipe the slate clean. Be who I want to be who I want. So get used to it, get used to it, get used to it, man, get used to it, get used to it, get used to it, get used to it, man, get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely buzzing. Loved being out on the pitch every minute of it, and a lot of the other lads did as well who haven't been getting the minutes, and you could see everyone was buzzing in the performances. A lot of energy as well. Just got to crack on, keep going now.
How difficult is it when you've not played that much football in quite a period of time to get yourself back on track and get yourself back up to where you need to be?
It's difficult, however, we've been doing a lot of extra in training as well. Myself and some of the other players who haven't been getting the minutes, we've been doing the extra, so being on the pitch first 5 minutes, maybe your awareness and that's off, but then you start to get into it again. It's all good.
And for you, how are you enjoying life being at a full-time club, being at Lincoln, being in League One?
Waking up every day with a smile on my face, loving it, absolutely loving it.
And is it what you expected? Is it what you dreamt of in a sense? Is this what you wanted?
Oh yes, of course what I wanted. Don't know what I expected, but I'm loving what I'm getting. So.
And do you feel you're getting better through having constant training under the manager who always talks about improving young players?
Oh, of course, yeah. The gaffer's quality. I've learned so much since I've been here. Still got a lot to learn. But yeah, just loving every day.
Another brilliant night for the Imps. Love that track as well. Get used to it. We're having to get used to seeing some fine Lincoln City Michael Appleton goals, aren't we? Another brilliant night for Lincoln City. I'm delighted to say that Lincolnshire football writer Alan Johnson joins us to help us look back at that game. Alan, good to see you. We know that you're at the LNER Stadium as well today. How are you?
Yeah,
Hopefully
good,
hear you okay
nice
as well, Alan.
Here. I do feel bad for the people that can't.
Yeah, good stuff. We've got a slight delay there. Obviously, hopefully we can stay with you. But let's go to Remy Howarth, because brilliant interview there. He just looks delighted to be here.
Yeah, I thought he came across really well. He had a real boyish charm and enthusiasm about him, and he backed that up with a great performance. He kind of reminded me of when we first signed Juan Luque a couple of years ago. That enthusiasm shone through too, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out well for him. But fingers crossed, if he can continue as he did on Tuesday night, he'll have a good future here.
Gary, I'll ask you this one. I know he's a player that you really like as well, Remy Howarth. Just talk us through the sort of impact he had, and how great is it as a fan to see an interview like that after the game?
Yeah, do you know what? Actually, I kind of got the same shades as the Hayden Cann interview there. It's just a young lad who's just thrilled to be where he is. He's got there through hard work, Remy. Anyone reading the programme notes today will know that he had a horrible injury earlier in his career where he thought that he wasn't actually going to play again. He just loves it. You can just see it. He just oozes it. He's a great forward-thinking player as well. I love his attacking intent. He obviously was heavily involved in the first goal, and I think we'll see more of him as the season progresses.
Alan, I'll go back to you. How important is the EFL trophy to this club? Of course, recent success in it, and with the Imps, the highest ranked team in the competition at the moment as well, it would be remiss of us not to think that something similar could happen this time around.
It could well do. Obviously, it's a much maligned trophy, but having said that, it takes on a greater significance this season, especially for a club like ours. I mean, each group stage win is worth £10,000 to the club. I'm not entirely sure if a win on penalties means £10,000, but I think it does. The fact we've already qualified for the next round with the game to spare, we'll go into the second round, and it's £20,000 at stake for a win in that round. And with the strong squad we have a good chance.
You're at a stadium as well, obviously. Give us an idea of what it's been like reporting at stadiums. I know you did a video a few weeks ago just saying what the process is. How have you found that process?
It's strange. What can I say? It's almost like being at a Sunday league game in some instances. You can hear all the conversations on the pitch. You can hear the shouting going on in the dugouts. I don't know about what impact having no fans here has really, because in one instance, it's the 12th man isn't here to spur the team on, but on the other hand, it takes away a bit of the pressure that the players have when you're playing in front of a big crowd, as we do, or as we used to every week at least. But on the whole, it is a real strange, subdued experience.
Well, listen, fingers crossed that I'm sure you echo these sentiments as well, see fans back in the LNER Stadium as soon as possible and as soon as it's technically safe to do so. We'll let you get off and prepare yourself for the game. Much appreciated, Alan Johnson.
Thank you, Sam.
Just going back to Al's point there as well, Gary, I had a comment in from Tinkler23, and he asks you, he says, does Gary think that the good start has anything to do with the fact that fans are not being at the ground? He sort of flipped it on its head there. What do you think the answer to that is?
I can see the arguments for it, if I'm honest. If you have a relatively young side, certainly one that at home is sitting deep, as we did against Oxford, the atmosphere can sometimes get a little heated in the stands. You know, we all sit near somebody in the stand who will moan about everything and anything. Whether it's when we're away from home, and maybe it has an impact as well, as I said about Blackpool, if they go one up, the momentum then isn't with them from the crowd, and if they don't carry it through as a team, then I suppose the away advantage is taken, the home advantage rather is diminished a little bit. But I don't think there's a single footballer or manager in the land who would actually say, look, not having fans in the stadium is working for us. But psychologically, potentially, I think we've seen a lot of freak results this year, not just Lincoln, across football. And I think not having fans in the ground does have something to do with that.
Yeah, just off the back of your quote there about young players, Owen Cottam says, I could see Appleton getting us up to the Championship with all the young talent that he brought into the club. And there's a brilliant feature that Michael Appleton has done with Mark Clement from BBC Football Focus that you could see. I think you could see it around about an hour ago or so, but it's on all the BBC social media channels as well. And but one of the really interesting things from Michael Appleton in that interview was the fact that he said that going back to January of last year, they made some really difficult decisions, but all those decisions were made solely on the back of looking ahead. And I think it was Mark Clement that actually asked him and said, during lockdown, you had the foresight to look ahead to the next season, whilst perhaps a lot of managers were thinking about how to get through last season. And we're seeing the fruits of that labour almost now, aren't we, Gary?
Absolutely. And when we look at players like Teo Eden and like Anthony Scully, Max Melbourne signed permanently, they were all signings in January that may have attracted criticism from some quarters in that you don't win anything with kids. We're taking away some of our senior players, the likes of John Akindi, Harry Toffolo left. But the interview with Mark Clement was really, really interesting. And I particularly like the fact that Michael said, if I keep this group together, we might be contenders next year or something along those lines. I think that he's therefore alluding to the fact that what we're seeing at the minute is an embryonic form of his vision. Now, if 4 wins out of 4, top of the table, and the only team that beat us are the world champions, is an embryonic form of his vision, who knows where we can go. We have to keep grounded at the moment. There will be bumps along the way. We've had a smooth start, but certainly, you know, this is probably the youngest and most exciting Lincoln City squad that I've seen in my time as being a fan.
I'm aware that the conversation moved on slightly, but I just want to go back to that Mansfield game because watching one of your videos after it, you were really impressed with the 2 stand-in centre-backs against Mansfield, young players who normally both play as wing-backs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit odd because it's kind of flipped on its head that they are actually both centre-backs. So they were playing in their preferred position. And so I'm impressed with the fact that they play so well at fullback in the senior team. But when you look at, they were 19 and 17 years old. They came up against the likes of Jordan Bowery, Jamie Reid, Nicky Maynard, all of who like sort of late 20s, early 30s. They've been around the grounds. They've played lots of football, and yet neither Sean nor TJ looked particularly ruffled. If you look at Theo Archibald's goal, that starts with a tackle from TJ Ioma or a header from TJ Ioma that Anthony Scully picks up, and off we go and we score. And I think that again plays into Michael's philosophy. Last year we saw it. We were trying to play out from the back. The players perhaps didn't entirely suit the method. And again, at the time, it drew some criticism from supporters. But now you can see what Michael wanted to do. And I think with hindsight, he would probably get a little bit of an easier ride than he got from some quarters last season.
Steve O'Dare says, prior planning and preparation prevents poor performance. Sam, Steve enjoying the alliteration there and testing my tongue twisters, no doubt about that. Good to hear from you as ever, Steve. David Johnson says a cut run this year would be huge. Yeah, we have been blessed, haven't we, with cut runs for Lincoln City over the last few years. But why couldn't we see yet another one for the Imps? No doubt about that. Paul Turner says, I'm going to go for a cheeky 3-0 today. Would be a cheeky result indeed, wouldn't it? Clive Fonzie Alfonso says 2-0 to the Imps win. Come on, City. And he says, hi, Gaz, as well. I'm sure Gaz says hello back, no doubt about that. Gary, I thought it was interesting what Alan said about the process of reporting from inside stadiums. Almost that it's a Sunday league game. It is interesting to hear that because we aren't privy to that. We don't watch it from the press box when there's no fans here. So what did you make of that?
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from. And I think if we go back to the League One playoffs last year, and it was Fleetwood when they had Paddy Madden sent off, because you could hear all the foul and abusive language that he was saying, that he was pointing at the linesman, that the referee had no option. And I can imagine being sat out there in the stands, you hear every instruction, you hear every shout, you hear every sort of bit of to-in and throw-in. It wouldn't be for me. I think from a reporter's point of view, it might help you get a little bit of insight because you'll know whether a manager's getting angry with his team or not. I mean, we even heard it on iFollow. I think, was it MK Dons or potentially Charlton, where they were getting so angry and you could hear the manager getting angry at the players. The players can hear that as well. And maybe when fans are in the ground, the players don't hear it so much. Perhaps they can block out what they want to. So, I mean, again, it certainly changes the dynamic of the game. And it must be very odd sat up there in the stand hearing everything. It must be.
Kev Barwise says, got to be careful that we don't get too carried away, gents. Why not, Kev? This is football, isn't it? No, he says, that said, I'm going for a 4-0 Imps win. Oh, so he just got against his word there. But we like it, Kev. A repeat of the 83 scoreline with Hopper netting the hat-trick instead of John Fashanu. Kev, I can't believe you're old enough to remember a game back in 1983. You don't look a day over 35. I've seen you about on Facebook, but good to hear from you as ever, Kev. Neil Carlton says, happy Mental Awareness Day, everyone. Well done to Lincoln City for doing their bit. Yeah, it's certainly so, Neil. Calm are sponsoring today's match. It's the campaign against living miserably. This is something that Lincoln City have teamed up with both their sponsors, LNER and Calm, the campaign against living miserably. Of course, as Neil alluded to there, it is World Mental Health Awareness Day. It's no doubt one of the most important days in the calendar, certainly now more so than ever, isn't it? Do take a look at this.
Preventing 253 suicides. That's over 12,000 hours talking to people.
Right now, Calm's life-saving services are needed more than ever.
And they will continue to be there for whoever needs them.
Football has a huge part to play
in the way we deal with mental health and suicide. We are in this together.
Be there with your mates when things get tough. Speak up.
Imps as one.
Imps as one.
Imps as one.
Imps as one. Imps as one.
Yeah, really powerful stuff indeed. A reminder too that 50% of today's 50-50 tickets are going straight to Calm, the campaign against living miserably as well. All the details available at www.weareimps.com. And Gary, I'll ask you, how important is it that we do bring this to the fore, that we do discuss it, and that the football clubs like Lincoln City are doing, the sponsors like LNER are doing, take this as seriously as we think it really should be done?
Yeah, hugely. You know, I mean, I've done a few bits in the past trying to raise awareness and work with various people as well. I think it has to continue to be forced. And football clubs and the players that we've seen there on the video, they're role models. And what they say kind of garners respect. I think 20 years ago, maybe from a player's point of view, there was very much kind of a banter era and it was much harder to speak out. It's really, really important, especially in the challenging times that we're going through in 2020, that people keep other people in mind. And I don't think that's just from fans either. You know, when the way that we deal with footballers, the way that we talk about footballers on social media when they're injured or when they're out of form, you know, these are people as well. And I think it really pays just for everybody maybe to think just before they say, before they type, or even when they're talking to a friend and just try and pick up on the signs.
Yeah, certainly so. It does seem now that when players actually discuss this, it's not as if they're being forced to say these things. They actually mean it. And you mentioned it before there that everyone is now beginning to talk about this, which I guess makes it at least a little bit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. I think, as you said, when players start talking about it a little more, and it seems like they're talking about it from the heart. You know, they're not just being put in front of a camera and saying words. You could hear it in certain players there, because those players will have gone through times when they've been injured, or when their career's been thrown into doubt, or when they're young players and they've been released, and there's been a fear that all of a sudden everything they've worked towards for the last 5, 10, 15 years could go to waste. And I don't think there's ever been a time where there's been such awareness of that, where there's been such a kind of a pathway. And like a classic example, I'm not saying that this player particularly struggles, but you look at young Jordan Adebayo-Smith, who's essentially been told, look, we're going to find a career pathway for you. You know, 10 years ago, that might have been a text saying, sorry. And I think that's where football is developing to kind of look after its own. And that passes on through supporters. You know, people who lead by example are then followed.
Yeah, well said, Gary, indeed. Yeah, just a reminder then that all the information for that is at www.weareimps.com. 50% of today's 50/50 tickets are going to the campaign against living miserably. So do purchase if you can. And Gary, just before we go to Alan Long at the team news, I believe that you've set up a new forum that will be helping the club as well.
Yes, yeah, I have. I used to get quite a few comments on the stacywest.net. So we've now set up a forum that's on a hosted site with advertising. So people can find the forum on stacywest.net. There's a menu along the top that says forums. It's very old school. It's how you and I, Sam, met, Sam, isn't it, on the old Vitals forum. People can just join for free, talk about Lincoln City, read other people's posts, come along, have a look every day. Every click, every visit raises money. Being really open about visitor stats, so you can see how much money and how many visitors are coming in. So yeah, just hopefully put a little bit of money back in the club's pocket at a challenging time.
Yeah, and I'm sure you echo the sentiments, Gary. You mentioned Vital Lincoln there as well. Vital Lincoln still doing great stuff for the club, raising money as well. That's a brilliant forum to stay across as well. So you can Google Vital Lincoln, Vital Imps. And for yourself, it's stacywest.net/forum, is it? Something like that. Give us the details, Gary.
No, you need to go to stacywest.net and click on forum. It's actually hosted on my other site, the Real EFL. And again, I stress this isn't meant to be a rival to Vitals. I don't want to take anything out of their pocket. But I'm just aware that there are a group of people who, for one reason or another, don't post on there, or people who visit my site. There'll be links on all of the articles where you can go and comment as well. So it's meant to be an additional stream. It's absolutely not meant to be rival whatsoever.
Good stuff. We are getting ever so closer to 2 o'clock and to be going live pitch side to Along. Just before we do, I'll go to a couple of your comments. Dan Lambert says, hi, Sam, watching all the way from sunny Congleton. Shout out to the Lambos and the Mottrams. There you go. There's his shout out. Steve Byatt says, a bit of a toughie today, lads, but still a great chance of 3 points in the bag. A nice 2-1 result would do us proud. Come on, you Imps. Yeah, we'd take a 2-1, wouldn't we, Steve? Good to hear from you. Right. It is now 2 o'clock, which means one thing and one thing only. We can cross live pitch side to the LNER Stadium and to hear from Alan Long, who has today's team news.
Well, thanks, Sam. Yeah, welcome to pitch side here at the LNER Stadium. Your timing is brilliant because the sun's just come out on me. It's chilly. This is, you can see it's a nice sunny afternoon. And as always, I've got the teams here in front of me. So I'll start off with our visitors from Bristol. So in goal is number 32. That's Ansi Jacola. And then it's 4, Josh Grant. At 5 is Max Ahima. Zane Westbrook is at 8. At 9, it's Brendan Hamlin. 14, Luke McCormick. 17 is James Daly. 22 is Josh Hare. At 24 is David Tundonda. Kean Harris is at 25. 26 is Jack Baldwin. On the bench, we've got number 1, Jordy van Stappershoff. We've got number 3, Luke Leahy. At 6, Edward Upson. Number 11 is Sam Nicholson. Alfie Kilgore is at 15. 20, Cameron Hargreaves. 28 is Zane Walker. Here we go with the all-important Imps lineup. So in goal, as always, is number 1, Alex Palmer. At number 4, Lewis Monsmer. Number 5, Adam Jackson. At 7 is Teo Eden. Number 8, James Jones. Number 9 is Tom Hopper. 10, George Grant. 18, Colin McGrandles. At 22 is TJ Ioma. Liam Bridcut comes back at 23. And at 26 is Harry Anderson. On the bench for the Imps today, it's 31, Mr. Sam Long. Well done, Sam. It's number 11, Anthony Scully. At 14, Theo Archibald. At 16, it's Joe Walsh. Remy Howard is at 17. And welcome to the bank to 21 to Jamie Sewell. And at number 30, it's Sean Rowan. Today's referee is Jeremy Simpson. The assistant ref is Mark Jones and Michael George. And Stephen Meredith is the 4th official. Well, as always, I'm glad to say we're joined by a player. Callum, if you'd like to come in. So, those of you who don't know, this is Callum. Well, so, Callum, first of all, how are you settling into the city? Have you had much chance? It's all been a bit of a whirlwind, I guess.
Yeah, no, not really, to be fair. I'm staying with a couple of the other lads. So,
right.
I think seems a good place to live, and I've had a chance to explore,
But I guess you've seen the Red Arrows.
Yeah, a few times.
So, looking at last week's game, it showed a lot of team spirit. The fact that the guys came back from going behind twice, especially late in the game, to steal the 3 points.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I was watching it from home myself, so I saw that. I think they did very well, especially being 2-up down, like you say. But I think that's what we have in the group. We have good mentality, good character, and a fit bunch of lads, which shows that we're forward and they are.
Yeah, and of course in Lewis, you've got a centre back scoring goals for fun.
Oh yeah, I know.
Put pressure on you.
Yeah, I know. At least there's goals coming from everywhere. It's a good thing.
Now, if we look behind us, it's all very quiet at the moment. Of course, the boys will be out in a minute. Big game today. 4 wins. Obviously, you want to build on it. It's a chance to move ahead in the top of the league. How are the guys feeling?
They're confident. They're confident going into every game, I think. And we always back ourselves. Whoever's playing, I think Tuesday night shows the French players, all the players that haven't been getting as much minutes. They've proven that they can step in whatever the scenario, whenever asked. And I think again today to say, that the test that will come up against the manager, the coaching staff, meticulous with the analysis before the game. I think we're confident going into the game.
Of course, presumably you know Michael quite well. So how are you thinking?
Yeah, it's been good. He's from briefly when he was at West Brom. He seems very good coach, good tactician, and obviously.
Brilliant. Right, well, thanks for joining us as always. Sam, I'm going to head back to you. It's probably a breezy day. You can see there's a few clouds around. We're open for a dry afternoon here at the LNER Stadium. Back to you in the nice warm studio.
Yeah, if you hadn't guessed, it's pretty windy at the LNER Stadium. Apologies if you couldn't hear too much of that. That was Callum Morton speaking to Alan Long. Of course, we hope that Callum gets better soon. A brilliant start to the season for him, but injury at the moment keeping him out. But good to hear, in parts at least, from Callum Morton. Let me rerun through today's team news for you then, just to give you a reminder. It's Alex Palmer in goal, TJ Ioma, Lewis Monsmer, Adam Jackson, Teo Eden is the change for Michael Appleton. He comes in and replaces Sean Rowan. It is then Liam Bridcut, Conor McGrandles, James Jones, and that familiar front three of Harry Anderson, George Grant, Tom Hopper. On the bench, it's Sam Long, as Alan mentioned there before. Congratulations to Sam for getting on the bench today. Walsh, Scully, Howarth, Archibald, Sewell, and the aforementioned Sean Rowan. That is your Lincoln City starting 11. And Gary, I will go straight to you then with the headline news that Teo Eden comes in for Sean Rowan.
Yeah, really interesting. I think Sean had a bit of a torrid time in the first half against CJ Hamilton against Blackpool. Obviously, he's then played 90 minutes in midweek at centre half. and Michael's chosen to go with Teo. I'm not entirely surprised. When I chatted to Michael pre-season, he did say, look, we know young Sean might have patches. If he does have a time where he looks like he's being exposed, for instance, the Blackpool game, we may give him a game or two to recover from that. And I think it's just a little bit of squad rotation. I've really liked Teo at left back. I think he's mobile, he's forward thinking, he's very busy. We saw him pop up, I think, in the right-hand channel after coming on against Blackpool. But, don't forget, he came on, he helped contain CJ Hamilton. I thought he had a really good game the other night as well. And, I think Teo Eden is going to be a big player for this football club. I say that about everybody. But I really think that Teo Eden's got a huge future in the game with his England credentials as well. So it isn't a surprise to see him getting a first-team start today.
How important is that versatility that you mentioned as well? Playing left back today, we're not quite sure really what his best position is, whether it is midfield, whether it's left back. He can possibly play at centre back as well. Michael knows what he's doing, doesn't he, when he makes these signings in terms of versatility?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like Teo because he's really busy, and he made his debut, I seem to remember, against Blackpool last season at home, and I thought he was excellent. He was my man of the match that day. And then he's impressed me at left back against Blackpool this season. So I think he's equally as adept at either position. From a squad point of view, it's really good to have that versatility because you create depth without particularly having the numbers. So you can operate on a squad of 21, 22, but in reality, you've got 26, 27, 28 in terms of positional coverage. What Teo has to be careful of is not becoming the go-to guy when something isn't going right. So he's the backup left back because he plays midfield as well. He's the backup midfielder because he plays left back as well. I don't think that'll happen, particularly given the ability that Teo's got. But sometimes that's the downside to versatility.
And he's got a goal against the Premier League and current world champions on his history books now as well from the other week.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think you saw that quality. I think he came on in midfield. He can get forward. He's box to box. Yeah, it's great to have on your CV. I also seem to think that he played in a final for England against Scotland. And I think he told me he got sent off and had to watch the rest of it from the dressing room. So he's actually had, he's had quite a lot of experience for a young player. He's been with us quite a while now from January, which in terms of the squad is a fair while. And he's, like Anthony Scully, he's the kind of 12, 13. So he's the one that's right there on the cusp of a regular first team place. Today he gets a chance to write himself into the first 11.
Paul Allison says, no surprises in the starting 11. Good to see Joe Walsh back giving some cover on the bench. Hashtag up the Imps. Yeah, Paul, that's an interesting point you make. And Gary, I'll put this one to you then, because we've had a bit of a laugh, haven't we, at some of the bench players in the sense that it has been so attacking, so exciting. And a lot of the comments have been like, wow, that is an attacking bench that Michael Appleton has named. But having someone like Joe in there actually just shore up that bench a little bit, doesn't it, in terms of the sort of defensive to attacking ratio?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, with all the players you can have on the bench now, it's vitally important that you have a good spread. And we go back to that versatility. In Sean Rowan, we've got a left back and a centre back. Now, Joe is very much a centre back. He was signed, I believe, to come in and be one of our senior professionals this season. And he's had an unfortunate run at the beginning of the season with injuries, and obviously he was given compassionate leave as well. People probably don't quite realise how serious a player Joe Walsh is. It was a toss-up for me at the beginning of the season whether it would be Walsh and Jackson and Monsma. So he's very, very much first-team quality centre-back. So to have somebody like that on the bench, yes, he's great, but he's not going to be happy with sitting on the bench either. He's going to be knocking on the door. That puts pressure on the likes of Adam Jackson and Lewis Monsma to continue their good form. And competition for places raises standards.
Stephen Dave Freestone says, chuffed a bit at the fact that Harry Anderson has made in pre-season to make him a choice in the first 11 at this early stage of the season. And Stephen, that leads us nicely on to our next talking point, because it is about Harry Anderson, who was speaking at the SOPA EPC earlier this week. This is what he had to say.
To win so many games so early on is, very happy. As a team to start like that, it's important to get the points on the board early doors, and then now we've got a bit of momentum and try and carry that throughout the season.
And was it helpful, the manager having confidence in saying to you, wants you to come inside and evolve your game?
Yeah, that's something he quite enjoys the fullbacks being quite high up, and with wingers coming in off the line and picking up the ball. He's not saying do it every time, but it's being able to mix it up and be able to play in different ways, because obviously every team you play are different, so you've got to be able to either adapt and be able to play a certain way to try and beat their defence.
So after back-to-back away games at home this Saturday, I mean, clearly it is different because the supporters aren't there to cheer you on and get you going forward. But does there still feel like there's an advantage in any way playing at home at the moment?
I think there always is that sort of home feeling, obviously being in your dressing room. Obviously it is a shame, obviously no fans and that, because obviously you know how good our home support is. But I feel like we cope with it quite well at the minute, and it seems to be working, and we just need to keep focusing on the game and keep our head down and keep going.
Bristol Rovers, as the manager reminded, spent a lot of money in the summer on their squad. You might have looked and thought, well, we got through Blackpool, got through Charlton, got through Oxford. Perhaps there's not such difficult games on the road, and that's when you get tripped up, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously there isn't any easy team really in this league. I feel like you've got to be on your game every week. Otherwise, yeah, like you said, you will slip up. But you just got take every game as you come, and obviously put in a strong performance against these bigger sides that are spending this money, and try and get the wins.
Finally, for me, on a lighter note, obviously I don't have this problem, as you can see. I have very little hair. Is it still lockdown hair for you? Because when I saw you at the start of the season, it's quite long.
Yeah, I haven't had a haircut in I think it's about 8 and a bit months now. But I seem to be getting a bit of grief off a lot of people for it. And I look like various things, which I won't say. But
I'm just jealous I can't grow it.
Well, to be fair, yeah, I'm thinking if I grow it now, I can hang on to it a bit longer.
You can always lend me some.
Yeah. Well, see, my wing backs in here. I need to hide them a bit. But no, since we've been winning, I've just thought I'm going to leave it. So.
Yeah, Harry Anderson speaking to the ever so self-deprecative Michael Horton on BBC Radio Lincolnshire there. Gary, are you doing the same with your beard? No shave until the Imps lose?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually growing my beard until the Imps play badly, and I think I've had the beard now since 2017. So I think that tells you what sort of time we've had as Lincoln City fans, doesn't it?
He's turning into a fine young player, isn't he, Harry?
Do you know, I was just actually thinking, watching that video back, how I've enjoyed watching Harry develop and grow, not just as a player, but as a person. I remember when I interviewed him really early on in his career when he came to Lincoln and he was on loan, and he had that kind of youthful uncertainty about him. His answers were very short. And I think we've just watched him blossom. You know, and I know that sounds almost like a parent saying, "Oh, I've enjoyed watching him grow up," but we've got to watch Harry grow up in terms of the way he plays football as well. And I think, you know, he's showing a degree of versatility. He shows much more maturity. Sometimes still has the rush of blood with the wild shots and things like that. But that's Harry. You know, there's some attributes you couldn't take away from him. But you know, he's a Lincoln City player that we can all identify with. You know, he was the Hayden Can and the Remy Howarth 4 or 5 years ago, and we've been able to watch his whole journey to the player that he is today. And there's still a lot more to come from him as well.
Yeah, Steve says Harry Anderson has been a real shining light so far this season. He has matured enormously in the last 12 months as a player, solidly in the first 11 now. And just one more question to you, Gary, about Harry, because that was a really interesting point you made about watching a player grow. And he is that longest serving player now for the Imps, unbelievably. And he is that player that the fans can identify with, especially those fans that maybe joined on this Lincoln City journey during the time of when the Cowleys were in and the club were winning things. So it is important to have a player like that in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he almost offers some sort of ground, and it's like he's the earth, he's the constant. And I think if you change everything at a football club, fans can become a little bit disillusioned. They can feel disconnected. And you know, in Harry Anderson, we've got this player that's been with us for a while now. For some young fans, if you're sort of 16, 17 years old, he's been there since you probably had posters on the wall. So, you know, we still see him as a young prospect. I think he's 23. He's approaching 150, 200 games for the club. But there's still so much more to come from it. And just listening to him speak, you can even hear the development kind of in him, the way that he's approaching the game, the sort of things he's talking about when he's changing and he's now cutting inside a little bit more. And I just think, you know, it's great for fans fans. You've always got to have that hero to cling on to. Fans have got their favourite players, but at the same time, like a football club's often identify with one player. One player is kind of synonymous with a football club, and it helps kind of reaffirm that identity that the club have. So that's Harry Anderson all over for me.
Yeah, I get the feeling we'll be seeing plenty more of Harry Anderson over the next few years in the EFL, no doubt about that. Okay, well, we spent about 45 minutes or so talking about the Imps, and rightly so, after the start that they've made to this season. Let's now get a view from the opposition camp. The Bristol Rovers manager is Ben Garner. We'll be hearing from him shortly. But let's go live to Tom from Gascast. I think you caught a glimpse of him there. And Tom, we'll hear from Ben Garner shortly. But give us an idea about the start to the season you've made. Do you think 15th is a fair representation of the sort of style of play that your team has and the start to the season that you've had?
Yeah, I think it was a difficult one because we had Ipswich and Sunderland like first two games, so they're always going to be difficult. We got our first win obviously last week against Northampton, so I think on those kind of fixtures we're about where we should be. I think after today we've got a few winnable fixtures. We've got kind of the Accringtons and the Burton's coming up, so I'm thinking that's kind of for me where we should start kicking on and really putting some points on the board. So about 15th now, I'm pretty happy with it, to be fair.
Yeah, good stuff. Great to have you on the show, Tom. What we're going to do, we're going to come back to you shortly. We're going to hear from your manager, Ben Garner, now, who was speaking earlier because he was full of compliments for the Imps. Then we'll come back to Tom. But this is what Ben Garner had to say, speaking at his training ground the other day.
I think Lincoln obviously had a very, very good start to the season. We don't pay too much attention to the league table, if I'm honest. We look at the games and analyse what they do and where we feel we can win the game. And, we've done that in great detail. But they've got a good squad. Michael's done a very good job there in the turnaround that they've made. There's several young players I know from my time at West Brom. So, I've got quite a good insight into their squad. But we're looking forward to the game. We think we've had a good two good performances last two games. And we're looking forward to the test at Lincoln tomorrow.
Yeah, how important is that? How much of an advantage could it be that you have some insight on some of their players, a lot of their players from previous encounters, and also working with them?
I don't think it's an advantage as such. It just means that you know them and you've got an insight into them. There's no way of knowing how people are going to play tomorrow. It's the same the other way around when they're looking at our squad. As well as you know someone, or if you've worked with them in the past, it doesn't have too much of a bearing on what's coming in the future. So, like I say, we've analysed in detail, which we do every week. We focused on what we think we need to do tomorrow, and that will be our concentration on what we're trying to do.
Yeah, let's go back to Tom at Gascast then. And Tom, Ben Garner seems like a pretty level-headed manager.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he kind of gets too high at the highs and too low at the lows, which is always nice. He did. Before the Northampton game, he was under a little bit of pressure because of the bad run that we'd been on in last season before the lockdown kind of ended the season. And that kind of started again this season. He started kind of cracking a little bit, started blaming the referees for our draw at Sunderland and, started kind of niggling at the referee about the Ipswich game. But he seems a lot calmer now. I think the Northampton win, getting that under his belt with his players, I think has really settled him down, and he's making all the right noises now.
Play can we expect from your side today then?
Sorry, say that again.
What sort of style of play can we expect from your side today then?
On the deck, passing out from the back. This is kind of the Ben Garner style. He wants to play, nice, attractive, attacking football. He likes to press high. I'd expect pressure on your centre-backs when they've got the ball. But we can also go long to Hanlon. He was a real handful against Northampton last week. He really gave the centre-backs like a really terrible time. So he'll be a big threat today. He'll be like the focal point of our attack. So if we can't kind of go through the lines and play nicely, we've always got an option to either pump it up to him long or into the channels, and he'll run and run and run, as will Daly, who's also going to be up front, probably in a 2, maybe in a 3. It's a difficult one to see what kind of formation he's going to play today, because he's kind of switched it a few times. But I think mainly on the floor, on the deck, nice football. But yeah, we can switch it up if needs be.
Talk to us about the back end of last season then. Would it be fair to say that your side is maybe struggling with an ever so slight hangover from last season, or is that not something that you'd go on board with?
So when Graham left after the Ipswich game, bizarrely in his post-match, he announced that he was considering his position, which was incredible. And then, we were managerless for a little bit, and then Ben Garner came in. And he just tried to change too much too quickly. With the players that Graham had, we were very good at being defensively solid and then pumping it up to JCH, who's gone to Peterborough this summer, and then him winning us games and kind of playing off him as a focal point for our attack. So it's a lot of hoofball, bypass the midfield. And then Ben came in, he signed a couple of players, and he wants to play a bit more, much more possession-based, much more pressing-based. And it just didn't work. So we kind of went on one of the worst runs in our history, literally. And the lockdown kind of, on one hand, it came at a good time because it meant, we didn't have to play any more football, which was nice. But it came at a really bad time because we'd just beaten Sunderland and you kind of just started to see what he was trying to implement coming in. So this season, I wouldn't say it's a hangover because most of the players that played last season have gone. He's made a lot of changes. He made a lot of changes in January last year, and he's made a lot more this summer, and a lot more of the players that he wants and that the club are trying to go with, with a philosophy of buying young for value, which is a horrible thing to say, but develop players and then hopefully sell them on for a profit, and at the same time kind of push us up the table. So some fans, still have a lot of fans still have reservations against him, and I don't think the difficult start helped. But I wouldn't say it's a hangover. I think it's just we're still a work in progress. It's still early in the season. He's still got a lot of new players to bed in. So, we're not, by no means, we're not the finished article that how he wants us to be playing.
Let me bring in Gary then. I believe Gary's got a question to ask you as well, Tom.
Yeah, hi Tom. Obviously, you and I have spoken before about Zane Westbrook was quite a coup over the summer. But Max Emma interests me because I think he was a bit of a coup as well. Obviously, came from Gillingham. How's he settled into your philosophy?
Yeah, really good. So we lost Tony Craig in the summer. He was released, and he was our kind of rock at the back, really aggressive, really organising everyone at the back. And Max Emma, massive coup. And it seemed that Gillingham just couldn't, with all the uncertainty, quite offer him a contract quick enough. And we stole in there, which was, for Rovers, is fantastic. Normally we're waiting till everyone else has done their business and we'll pick up the scraps. So to get Gillingham's captain, absolutely amazing. And he has slotted in that role. He's big, commanding, strong, aggressive. But with the new look defence, he's not played with either of any of our players before. So it's taken a little bit of time to gel. I think the first game of the season against Ipswich was a bit of a I don't want to swear, but it wasn't great back there. So I think it just needs a little bit of time to gel, and hopefully he'll be that kind of mentor to the young players that Tony Craig was. And with Tony Craig especially, he brought on Alfie Kilgore, who's like a Bristolian gashead, brilliant centre-back. He brought him up 2 or 3 levels, just kind of being there and kind of guiding him along. And I hope that he can do that with Cian Harries and Jack Baldwin, who he's playing with this season. And then obviously Alfie's still in the background there as well. So, yeah, I've been impressed with him so far. I've really enjoyed watching him play.
Tom, just finally then, obviously no fans at the LNER Stadium this afternoon. I want to ask you, were you at this stadium back in 2006-07 when you did us in the playoffs? Because I have to say, as a fan, it didn't help that I was sat extremely close to the Bristol Rovers supporters at the time. And I have to say that was one of the most heartbreaking nights as a Lincoln City fan, to go out in the way that we did. It was arguably more heartbreaking than some of the playoff final defeats that we've had. I don't know if you can remember that game. What I remember from it, other than being utterly heartbroken, was the brilliant away support that your side brought.
Yeah, sadly I wasn't. And yeah, it's upsetting, but you can't make them all, unfortunately. But yeah, we do travel well when we are allowed to travel, and then when we went on to Wembley, we had fantastic support, and pretty much every time we go to a big game, we get incredible support, and it's pretty heartbreaking at the minute that I can't go away. It's obviously upsetting to everyone. I have got a question for you if you've got time.
Wow, me or Gary or both?
Either or.
Go on.
The air raid siren, is that
Go on.
going to be on the telly today? Is that going to be going every corner?
I think I can safely say it isn't. Gary is the oracle, so Gary will correct me if I'm wrong. But we haven't seen the air raid siren this season, have we, Gary?
No one allowed in to wind it up. I don't think we've had it for a while. I might be wrong, but I don't recall it last season at any point either. No.
No, I know it's something that away fans absolutely hate. And I think what one of the all-time air raid siren goals, if you can call it that, was going back a couple of years ago to the Dagenham game. I believe it was live on BT Sport, and a corner came in, and the siren, whoever was operated at a perfect time, straight onto Matt Reed's head. I believe we did Dagenham 2-0 at the time, Gary. Am I right in saying 2-0? And that was the epitome of the air raid siren working. But no, we're certainly missing it, actually. It's a really good point you make. So thanks for flagging up, but you don't have to worry about that today, Tom.
Excellent.
Many thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time. We'll let you go and get settled and enjoy the game as best you can on iFollow. But many thanks.
Thank you.
That's Tom Metcalf from Gascast, brilliant Bristol Rovers podcast, and great to hear his thoughts ahead of the game today, especially hearing about the Lincoln City siren. No doubt about that. Gary, what are your memories of playing against Bristol Rovers then? Because for a long time, Lincoln and Bristol Rovers were in the same division, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. A few things stand out, actually. We don't have a great record against them. Obviously, the playoff game stands out. I remember a game where we drew 1-1 against them a few years ago. We were 1-0 up, and Junior Agogo, who had been on loan for us, scored, made an obscene gesture as he did so, and was sent off, and we still drew 1-1. I also think Jack Hobbs's only appearance in the Lincoln City shirt came against Bristol Rovers as well. I did an article about an away trip that we won 2-1, a Justin Walker free kick, and that really stays with me. I think when you grab those last-minute winners and you're there in somebody else's ground, it tends to resonate and remain with you, which I suppose makes fans not being at Blackpool last week even worse.
You can see pictures of Alex Palmer being warmed up there in the LNE Art Stadium, Lincoln City net. We'll keep those in. And Gary, I'll ask you about Hull City last night then, because it was a somewhat surprising result. 4-1 they went down to Fleetwood.
Yeah, no, look, I backed Hull to do well at the beginning of this season. Obviously, they got 12 points from 12 going into last night, but they were really humbled last night. Done some looking through social media this morning at some of their fan reaction, and their fans are not convinced about McCann at all. I think they believe that the bubble is always likely to be burst at this level. They've come down with a relatively strong squad, the likes of Tom Eaves, George Honeyman, the Geordie de Viz, the centre-back as well. But it's worrying when you have done well and then you suddenly lose 4-1, because it almost kind of lifts the stone up and shows you the dirt and the nastiness underneath. So they'll need to bounce back. But what it presents to us is a wonderful opportunity, because we know full well that a win today and we will be clear top. There'll be none of this level with somebody on points, none of this top on goal difference. And so they probably won't drive the players, but I know that supporters will be watching that. And if we're drawing, they'll be looking at the Ipswich result as well, because it's been a long while since we were clear top at this tier of football.
Yeah, I know all eyes are, of course, on today's game, but Fleetwood up next for the Imps. A difficult start to the season for them, but of course they've just gone and won 4-1 against Hull. So we don't quite know what to expect from that game, do we? But it will make for an interesting one, no doubt. Any side managed by Joey Barton undoubtedly will be.
Yeah, Fleetwood are a really mixed bag. I was impressed with their summer transfer business. They signed Callum Camps from Rotherham, who's a player that I really rate. They hung on to Ched Evans and Paddy Madden. You know, they're well financed, so they probably weren't hit as hard by the coronavirus pandemic as everybody else. They've had a bad start, but you never know. We saw them get absolutely hammered in the playoffs. I mean, they were woeful against Wickham. They had 2 men sent off. They lost their discipline, which sounds more like the image of their manager. But then last night, you know, they delivered some good balls into the box. They scored some cracking goals. They obviously weren't fazed by playing the league leaders. That's the positive Fleetwood. So it depends which Fleetwood turns up. And let's not forget, we've got Ipswich this month as well. I mean, I spoke pre-season that you look at this kind of run of games and it's unforgiving. And I know people say there's no easy games at this level, but like Tom just alluded to there, when you've got kind of your Accringtons and your Burtons and your Wimbledons and your Rochdales coming up, no disrespect to those teams, but they're games that as Lincoln City you go into thinking these are games that we could and should be winning. But Fleetwood and Ipswich, arguably Bristol Rovers, Oxford, Charlton, they're not games like that. So, I mean, it makes our achievements so far even more remarkable.
Yeah, some big months coming up for the Imps, no doubt about it. Gary, that is us just about out of time. Really appreciate your time on the show. We'll let you go and get settled ahead of the game. Many thanks for your time this afternoon.
No worries. Thank you, Sam.
So as I said, we are coming to the end of another edition of Matchday Live. A huge thank you to all of our match sponsors. Match sponsor today is the aforementioned Calm, the campaign against living miserably. Our man of the match sponsors, Soper of Lincoln as well. Many thanks for your sponsorship this afternoon. And SRP Hire Solutions, there today's match ball sponsors. Thank you for your invaluable support today, no doubt about that as well. Okay, if you go to www.weareimps.com/iFollow, you can purchase today's match pass. If you do so now, you'll be able to hear all the build-up with Michael Horton and Steve Thompson on BBC Radio Lincolnshire. Can Lincoln City continue that perfect start to this League One campaign? Make it 5 out of 5 for the first time in 100 years. Do not bet against it. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.